A very good evening, sir. I am Hanif from CSEB section, and the topic for my presentation is the program on function without arguments and with return values. Let me go to the outline of the presentation. By the end of this presentation, we will be able to know what is a function. We will be able to explore the needs of functions in C programming. We'll also learn what are the parameters and return values used in functions, types of functions based on arguments. We'll also learn how to use functions without arguments and return values. We'll know the syntax for the respective type C program mentioned above. We'll also be able to write an example program for the syntax. Moving on to the introduction. What are functions? Functions are an essential part of C programming, allow us to break down complex tasks into simpler, more manageable pieces. See, these are functions or something that which are part of C programming, which are used to break down complex tasks into simpler. Functions need to be written once and can be called as many as times required inside the program. Functions are only written once, but we can call many times. This increases reusability in code and makes code more readable and easy to test, debug, and maintain the code. Further, it could be defined as function is a block of code that can be used to perform a specific action. See, functions are the set of statements, in a sense, a block of code, which are used to perform a specific task or function. What is the need of function in C? A function is a block of code which only runs when it is called. As already mentioned that it's a block of statements. Function is a block of statements. You can pass data known as parameters into a function. Function takes data which is known as parameters. Functions are used to perform certain actions and they're important for reusing code. These functions, as we already discussed, they are used to perform a specific task or action, and these are important for using code. If we take a large codes, then we might be exhausted by repeated use of the same statements. But by using functions, uh, we can do a lot of things like we can reduce the time and reduce the reusage of code. In simple words, we can define the code once and use it many times. That is what we have discussed. By using functions, we can avoid rewriting same logic code again and again in a program. We can call C functions any number of times in a program and form any place and any place in a program. We can call any as many as times we needed, and we could call it from any place. Now let us know what are function parameters and what are return values. Parameters are variables declared in the function's declaration or definition. We'll learn in further what is function declaration, function definition. But before that, we have to know that parameters are variables. In the sense, they are memory locations. These act as placeholders for the values passed to the function when called. They allow you to pass data into the function, enabling it to work and manipulate that data. A parameter is a symbolic name for data that goes into a function. Parameters are nothing but we could say they are the input values which we give to the function. And coming to the return values, these are the values of function produced and which are sent back to the caller. In a sense, these are simply we could call them as output that we expect from the function. See, to know the syntax, we could see here return type with function name, and within the parenthesis there are parameters. So beside the function name, we have to give the input value, and before to that, what we are expecting output value, the data type to be written there. And now let us know about the types of functions. C allows user to create their own functions called user-defined functions. See, like functions are already, there are some functions which are already defined in different libraries, which are inbuilt that are known by the compiler. But there are some cases that we need to define our own functions. This kind of functions are called as user-defined functions. A user-defined function can perform specific actions defined by users based on given inputs and deliver the required output. As we discussed about that user-defined function, we could expect inputs based on specific actions we have given to the function. There are various types of functions based on arguments and return values. See here, functions using with arguments and with return values. In the sense, with arguments with return values. And another type is with arguments and without return values. Without arguments and with return values. The last type is without arguments and without return values. Now let us only concentrate on functions using without arguments and with return values. To use functions in C, we need to know about three things. That is declaration of function, calling of a function, and the definition of function. First, declaration of function. The declaration of a function in C programming provides information to the compiler on the name. In the sense, in the declaration, you tell the compiler what is the name of the function. So you could see here the syntax for declaration is return type, function name, and parameter list with semicolon. Semicolon is important here. As you could see, example int, that is function name is max, and the parameters are number1 and number2, which are integer data type, and the output also we are expecting as the integer. And moving on to the calling of a function, it's only called by its name in the main function of a program. We can pass the parameters to a function calling in the main function. We only call the function within the main function. We'll be writing like int main, void main, like in those kind of global main only we are going to call this subfunctions. Syntax for this calling of function is add AB, that is A and B are parameters here. The most important thing of a function, that is definition of a function. The function definition consists of actual statements which are executed when the function is called. When you're calling function means you have to define it. So this is what definition of function means. For that, syntax is the return type, in the sense the output type, function name with included parameters within the parenthesis. And you would run the block of statements which are you expecting for the output within the flower brackets. As we move to the example, int add int x comma int y. Here you are declaring x and y variables as a parameters, and int you are expecting as a output value. In the block of statements, we write int z, z equals to x plus y, return z. In the sense, we are declaring z variable, and we are accessing it as z equals to x plus y. Z is a sum of x and y, and we are returning the z value. And the most important thing to remember here is, after you are written the definition of a function, you should not put a semicolon, because you are not ending the function, you are defining the function. So you should not use semicolon. To get into the topic, we are mainly discussing about the function that is used without arguments and with return values. We are not using any arguments, but we are expecting the output value. There could be occasions where we need to design functions that may not take any arguments but returns a value to the calling function. A function which does not take any parameter and returns a value as a result is called function without argument and with return values. As we discussed, we are not giving any parameters to the function, but we are returning a value as a result. This is called function without argument and with return value function. And all input and calculation operations are performed in the function definition. When we are not giving the parameters to the function, we have to define them in the function definition section. So the result that is produced by the calculation is returned to the calling function using the return keyword. We are using the return keyword to expect the value. And function returning the value can be used in expressions also, which we'll learn by studying the following example. So the syntax for the type of function is function declaration. It is int function name with parenthesis only, but we are not giving parameters. It is followed by semicolon. Function call, it is just function name with empty parenthesis followed by a semicolon. Function definition, int, in the sense int data type we are expecting as a return value, function name followed by again empty parenthesis, and we are returning x value with the block of statements that we need, that are performed by a function. For the better understanding of the functions of type which have no arguments and with return values, we'll now move on to the example program. C code for function with no arguments but have return value. In the documentation section, we have written the comment to know about what code we are going to write. And include math.h and include stdio.h. These are the header files we are using for the required code. Math.h is used to get the required square roots like mathematical functions, we are using square root function in this code. So we have invoked the math.h header file. And stdio.h most commonly used for standard input and output operations we are expecting. And moving on to the function declaration, int sum parenthesis followed by semicolon. We are declaring before the main section. We can also declare within the main section, but if we declare above the main section, it is called as global declaration. And moving on to the main function, int main, int number. In a sense, number is a variable which is of int is a data type, and num is equals to sum parenthesis followed by semicolon. This is function call we are giving. Printf sum of two given values equals to percentage %d. Percentage %d we are using because it is of integer data type, and followed by num. We are returning 0 because we have used int main here. And here we could see that there are no arguments, in the sense no input values within the main function. That is what we are learning now. Functions without arguments, but with return values, but we are expecting output value. So for that kind, we would define the function as function definition includes int sum parenthesis, and we are writing the block of code for that function. Int a equals to 50, b equals to 80. In the declaration itself, we are giving a value as 50 and b value is 80, and followed by sum variable and semicolon. And below to that, sum is equals to square root of a plus square root of b. Return sum. We are returning the sum to the main function because the calling function is function call, that is num equals to sum, but the called function is within the function definition. So the output of the program would be sum of two given values equals to 20, because square root of 50 plus square root of 80 equals 20. This is what we would see as an example program for the function with no arguments with return value. Thank you, sir, for your patience listening.